Maybe self-destruction is the answer, and maybe we have to break everything to make something better out of ourselves. It's only after you've lost everything that you are free to do anything. Organized chaos. On a long enough timeline, everyone's survival rate drops to 0. The first rule of Fight Club is you don't talk about Fight Club. The second rule of Fight Club is that you don't talk about Fight Club. Today, however, we're going to break this rule. Fight Club, written by Chuck Palahniuk and published by Holt in 1996, follows an unnamed protagonist as he meets, befriends, and comes to increasingly identify with the book's violent and tragic antihero, Tyler Durden. Our protagonist, whom we follow through the narrative, is a modern everyman who is more of a representation of what Palahniuk believes is wrong with society than a fully fledged person in his own right. He is a symbol whose name we never learn and whom we identify only with the things and people with which he surrounds himself. Speaking to this, our hero suggests, I loved my life. I loved that condo. I loved every stick of that furniture. That was my whole life. Everything. The lamps, the chairs, the rugs were me. The dishes in the cabinets were me. The plants were me. The television was me. In this way, Palahniuk uses this character to comment upon the way in which the culture of commodification becomes our only means of self-knowledge and self-awareness, a tool that is both unstable and insupportable. Into this descends Tyler, who literally blows everything up. First a condo, then a city, then a way of life, and finally, potentially, the world as we know it. The first time we meet Tyler, naked on a beach, pulling driftwood so as to pattern it on the sand, Palahniuk writes, what Tyler had created was the shadow of a giant hand. Only now the fingers were Nosferatu-like, and the thumb was too short. But he said how at exactly 4:30, the hand was perfect. The giant shadow of the hand was perfect for 1 minute. Tyler sat in the palm of perfection he'd created himself. A person had to work hard for perfection, but a minute of perfection was worth it. A moment was all you could ever expect of perfection. This book forces the reader to ask several questions. What is the meaning of existence? Do we operate based on free will? Or are our actions determined by someone outside ourselves, without our foreknowledge or our consent? And finally, if we can arrive at conclusions to these two queries, what legacy will we leave for future generations? Tyler seems to have all the answers and uses his power of persuasion to first create the titular Fight Club, wherein the only rules, aside from keeping absolute secrecy, is that only 2 men can fight at any one time, that the fight will take as long as it takes. He then uses his converts to enact Project Mayhem. The author describes these men, the converts, in the following way. I see the strongest and smartest men who have ever lived, and these men are pumping gas and waiting tables. Generations have been working in jobs they hate just so they can buy things they don't really need. We don't have a great war in our generation or a Great Depression, but we do. We have a great war of the spirit. The goal was to teach each man that he had the power to control history. We, each of us, can take control of the world. And we wanted to blast the world free of history. The book begins and ends on the Parker Morris Building, which name-checks a committee in the United Kingdom which drew up an influential 1961 report on space standards in public housing titled Homes for Today and Tomorrow. Led by Sir Parker Morris, the committee's report concluded that the quality of social housing needed to be improved to match the rise in living standards. Its recommendations took a functional approach, determining space standards in the home by considering what furniture was needed in rooms, the space needed to use the furniture and move it around, and the space needed for normal household activities. This potentially soulless and personal ultra-functionality seems to be the basis for the way in which the main character in the novel lives his life and the existence that Durden effectively destroys throughout this work. Author Chuck Palahniuk was born 1 year after the aforementioned treatise was published. Fight Club is his first published novel, which spurred not only a major motion picture and a video game, but a series of graphic novels released by Dark Horse Comics. Inspiration for what has been called nihilistic transgressional fiction may very well have come from the life of this writer. According to an article in the British newspaper The Guardian, as a child, he holidayed in the house where his grandfather murdered his grandmother. Then, while Brad Pitt was filming the bestseller Fight Club, his own father was killed by a love rival. Journalist Sean O'Hagan states in the introduction to this interview that it would appear that Chuck Palahniuk doesn't have far to go to find inspiration for his novels. Of his writing style, Palahniuk states, "I like to cut to the chase. I try to tell a story the way someone would tell you a story in the bar, with the same kind of timing and pacing. You hear the best stories from ordinary people. That sense of immediacy is more real to me than a lot of writerly, literary-type crafted stories. I want that immediacy when I read a novel. I don't want all that extraneous stuff, all those abstract descriptions." Although the novel itself is quite ambiguous about the setting, the film adaptation was set in Delaware. Although never directly stated in the finished film, clues to its location include, according to a Delaware Online article, a business card for Tyler Durden, which lists the address of Paper Street Soap Company as 537 Paper Street, with the zip code 19808, a Wilmington, Delaware area zip code. The mention of a Delaware City as a location of one of the fight clubs, the mention of Delaware's Franklin and Harrison Streets, the inclusion of Delaware license plates in several of the scenes. The connection is much clearer in the original script, wherein Wilmington, Delaware is specifically mentioned several times as being the location where the unnamed protagonist and Tyler reside. In a 2000 interview with the News Journal, when Fight Club was released on video, Palahniuk states it was the idea of director David Fincher and scriptwriter Jim Olds to set the film in Wilmington, Delaware, because of its deep ties to the credit card industry, the arguable basis for commodification in this country. This connection is due to its low interest rate for banks. Delaware accounts for only about 3% of the U.S. population, but is home to the biggest credit card conglomerates in the world, including MBNA, Chase, Discover, Barclaycard US, Bank of America, and Citi.